Imagine an empire as vast as it was powerful, stretching thousands of kilometers across the majestic Andes Mountains. An empire that seemed unshakable until the arrival of 168 men from Spain. How did a handful of conquistadors manage to overthrow the Inca Empire in record time? Was it strategy, luck, or something more sinister?
Stay with us to explore one of the most brutal and fascinating conquests in history.
We are in 1531. Spain has already crushed the Aztec Empire in Mexico, and a handful of men, the conquistadors, set out on a new adventure. These are not wealthy knights or princes. Most are soldiers of fortune, younger sons of poor families, men who had little to lose, but everything to gain. Their driving force, gold, glory, and the conviction that their king and their god sent them to conquer new worlds. Their combat experience, discipline, and above all, their weapons gave them a decisive advantage over peoples who had never seen such instruments of war. Leading them is Francisco Pizarro, a seasoned veteran who had already explored the South American coasts. He had heard persistent rumors of a fabulously wealthy kingdom nestled in the Andes, the land of the Incas. After several failed attempts, he finally assembled, in 1532, a tiny but determined expedition, 168 men, a few horses, and the audacity to challenge an empire. And that empire, the Incas, at the height of their power, controlled a vast territory larger than France and Spain combined. Their administration was sophisticated, their road network immense, and their army could mobilize hundreds of thousands of soldiers. On paper, the Spanish had no chance. But behind this facade, the structure was crumbling. Emperor Huayna Capac had died shortly before the Europeans' arrival, likely a victim of a smallpox epidemic brought by early contacts. His two sons, Huáscar and Atahualpa, had then waged a brutal civil war, weakening the state and dividing its armies. It was in this moment of fracture, of latent chaos, that a small group of strangers appeared. The clash that followed was not just a mere encounter, but the beginning of a historic turning point. When Francisco Pizarro and his 168 men landed in northern Peru in 1532, they did not merely have the audacity to challenge a gigantic empire. They had a strategy. Their first masterstroke was set at Cajamarca, a small Andean town where Atahualpa, freshly victorious from the civil war against his brother Huáscar, awaited them.
Someteos al emperador y a la cruz.
The emperor felt untouchable. He arrived escorted by thousands of warriors, but without offensive weapons. The Spaniards then prepared a deadly trap. Hidden in the narrow streets, they waited for the signal. When Atahualpa refused to submit to the King of Spain and to Christianity, Pizarro gave the order. Cannons thundered, arquebuses spat fire, horses charged, a vision of apocalypse for the Incas, who had never seen gunpowder or cavalry. Within hours, thousands of natives were massacred, and the emperor was taken alive. The psychological impact was immense. The sovereign, considered semi-divine, had fallen into the hands of 168 foreigners. Atahualpa tried to buy back his freedom with a colossal ransom, filling a room with gold and silver, one of the most fabulous accumulations of wealth of the era. But once the ransom was paid, he was condemned to death on charges of conspiracy and strangled with the gallows after agreeing to baptism to avoid being burned at the stake. The empire lost its leader, and chaos descended. From there, the war spread. The conquistadors advanced toward Cusco, the Inca capital, which they seized in 1533 with the help of thousands of indigenous allies hostile to Inca rule. This was a key element. The Spaniards did not fight alone. Many subjected peoples, such as the Cañaris or the Chachapoyas, saw in them an opportunity to free themselves from an authoritarian empire. This strategy of alliance allowed a handful of Europeans to multiply their strength. The Spaniards knew they could not defeat the Inca Empire in a direct confrontation. They relied on speed, surprise, and above all the capture of leaders. Cutting off the political and religious head of a group was often enough to throw thousands of warriors into disarray. Their cavalry was a weapon of terror. The shock of horses, combined with steel blades, created total panic. Their military discipline also contrasted with that of the Incas, who relied more on numbers and intimidation.
Several factors explain their meteoric success. Technology first. Arquebuses, steel swords, armor, and horses gave them an overwhelming tactical advantage. Psychology. The element of surprise and the sheer terror inspired by their weapons threw Inca armies into disarray. Local alliances. Tens of thousands of indigenous warriors reinforced their ranks, supplying logistics and intelligence. Disease. Smallpox and other epidemics, introduced during the first European contacts, had already decimated the population and weakened the empire long before the military clash. And finally, internal divisions. The civil war between Huáscar and Atahualpa had shattered political unity.
But Inca resistance did not vanish overnight. Leaders like Manco Inca led uprisings, besieged Cuzco, and established a stronghold of resistance in Vilcabamba. For nearly 40 years, the descendants of Atahualpa and Huáscar carried on the fight, waging guerrilla warfare in the mountains. Yet in 1572, the last Inca sovereign, Tupac Amaru I, was captured and condemned to death under the pretext of conspiracy and idolatry in a swift trial. He was strangled with a garrote after accepting baptism to avoid being burned at the stake. This act marked the definitive end of the Inca Empire. The most powerful empire in the Americas collapsed, swept away in a single generation by a handful of determined men, backed by technology, cunning, alliances, and the internal fractures of a world already weakened. The Spanish imposed their absolute domination over the Andes. The immediate consequences were cataclysmic: cities set ablaze, temples reduced to rubble, and native elites wiped out. The Andean population, already ravaged by smallpox and other European diseases, collapsed. It is estimated that pre-Columbian Peru counted around 12 million inhabitants at the start of the 16th century. Less than a century after the conquest, only 1 to 2 million remained, a demographic catastrophe without precedent. But the impact reached far beyond the Andes. The gold and silver torn from the mines of Potosí and the treasures of the Incas fueled the global economy, financing imperial Spain and reshaping trade across Europe and Asia. Social structures were transformed, encomiendas, forced Christianization, cultural mixing. In the long term, the fall of the Inca Empire marked the dawn of a new era that ever colonized South America, forged in the brutal encounter between two worlds, an encounter whose scars remain visible to this day.
Yet beyond the speed of this conquest lies a far deeper question. How could such a structured and sophisticated world collapse before so few men?
The answer rests in a mix of courage, cunning, and human fragility. The story of the Incas reminds us that even the greatest powers are built upon precarious balances. A universal lesson, one that still echoes today.
And you? What do you think of this lightning-fast conquest? Was it inevitable, or the result of a unique chain of circumstances? Let me know in the comments. I can't wait to read your thoughts. If this dive into history captivated you, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next videos. See you very soon, and don't forget, history never dies as long as we tell it.